Councillor Battles, Councillor Bateman, Councillor St. Pierre, and La Jeunesse. Okay, I can see everyone. Thank you. And we do have some members of the public that are joining with us virtually. So good evening, everyone, and welcome. I do wish to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting virtually on the lands of the Souk Nation, and that our municipality conducts its business from locations on their territory. Our first item of business tonight is Ministerial Order M192, and that is that Council is holding this meeting without members of the public in attendance under Ministerial Order M192, as Council chambers cannot safely accommodate the unknown number of public participants wishing to attend, and that Council is committed to ensuring openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability through the submission of written comments and the provision of live and recorded broadcasts of the meeting. So look for a mover for this particular resolution, please. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Logans. Thank you. I see we have a member of the public that's just joined us. We're just starting here. If you could put your device on mute, that'll be great. Thank you. So Council, I'll call the question on this item. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is item 6, and that is approval of tonight's agenda. So look for Council to approve the agenda as circulated, please. Motion to approve, please, by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor La Jeunesse. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is adoption of meeting minutes. So we have our meeting minutes from April 19th Committee of the Whole. Look for Council to adopt the minutes, please, as circulated. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor McMath. Any comments or corrections? Seeing none. Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please, of adoption. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next up, item 8 is report of the Chief Administrative Officer. So I'll ask Mr. McInnes for any update that you wish to share at this time.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do not have any updates for Council this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. So move on to item 9. This is our public question and comment period. So this is for any item on tonight's agenda. And what I'll do is I'm going to ask our corporate officer to introduce or to call out to any members of the public that may be registered to address Council tonight. So over to Ms. Mushada, please. Over to staff. Are there any members of the public here to address Council tonight?
Hang on, I'm on here. No. Thanks, sorry.
Sorry, Your Worship, I'm not sure where our corporate officer is at the moment. Maybe I'll
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
I can now, yes. So my question was, do we have members of the public registered to speak? We'd just like you to introduce the members of the public, please.
There's 5 on here, but only 2. I did not have any confirmation of whether they wish to speak. They were both about the Sun River Allotment Gardens. So if Jill Hickson or Chris Borisiak would like to speak, now is your opportunity. And I do see Jill there.
Okay, Ms. Hickson, welcome. We do have 2 minutes assigned for you to address Council tonight, so I'll start the timer when you start speaking. Please go ahead, and thank you for joining with us.
Good evening. Thank you very much for letting me attend this meeting. I just want to introduce myself. I am Jill Hickson, and I'm the president of the Sun River Community Gardens. And my purpose for speaking is to just really thank the Council for your support. I really we appreciate Councillor La Jeunesse and St. Pierre for the donations that you made last week, and also for Laura Hooper and Norm McGuinness for the work that they've done on the lease agreement. And we just really appreciate the support that the Council shows to the gardens. We know it's a very special place for the community, and we're really working hard to keep it that way. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Hickson, and thank you to your crew of volunteers for keeping the place as beautiful and magical as it has been. It is a real treasure indeed in our community. Okay, Ms. Machada, if you could please introduce our next speaker, please.
The other person I have registered is Chris Borisiak. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. I am unable to see if he or she has joined the meeting.
So Mr. Chris Berthiak, if we're pronouncing that correctly, are you here on the meeting?
Doesn't appear so.
Okay, and so those were the only two potential, our only other potential speaker, is that correct?
Yes, all other members of the public have just joined to observe.
Excellent. Okay, well, we certainly appreciate your joining with us this evening. So we'll move on in the agenda then. Our next item is item 10, and this is the consent agenda. So the motion would see that items 9.1 through 9.3 be adopted by general consent, but councillors, as you know, you can withdraw one if you so wish. So Councillor Beddoes, are you looking to move it or to withdraw an item for debate?
I'd like to withdraw 2 items for debate, please.
Okay, which ones?
The third item, which is the Committee of the Whole recommended Council and Souk emissions reduction target be set at 50%. And the next one, that the Committee of the Whole recommended Council, the CAC's data working group, so-and-so, you know, the ones I mean.
So I just want to check. So okay, so they're all part of the set 9.1 Committee of the Whole. So with the 1, 2, 3rd bullet down and the 4th one as well?
That's correct.
Okay, so those two are withdrawn. Are members, is there any other member of council wishing to withdraw any other items from the consent agenda? Okay, so what we'll do then is I'll look for a motion that all other items be adopted by general consent with the exception of those two. Councillor St. Pierre, you're making that motion. Do I have a seconder for the consent agenda, please? Councillor Lajeunesse, okay. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor, please. And none opposed, so all of those are adopted. So now we'll go to these items in sequence. So the first one here is that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that Souk's emissions reduction target be set as follows. A 50% cut from 2018 GHG emission levels by 2030 or 7% per year. This target should be in effect until supplanted by an equivalent or stronger target in the OCP. So in order to discuss this, it'll need to be moved and seconded, and then we can open up the floor for debate.
I'll move it.
Councillor Beddoes is moving it, and a seconder, Councillor St. Pierre is seconding. So going to the mover, please. Go ahead, please, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I felt there was a little bit of unfinished business from the last time. I will support this, a little bit reluctant because I don't like setting goals that aren't clear. And I'm okay with 50%. It's something to aspire to. I think it's very idealistic and short on practicality. I see the Americans have gone to 50%. Canada said 40 to 45, and the province said 50%. So I'm okay with it. It's just that I have a lot of problems with the 7% because most of these goals are achievable by people other than us. Electric cars will have a very big impact. This is 9 years we're talking about here, 7% a year. Coal-fired generators, industry in general, the petroleum industry specific, those things are all out of our realm to achieve these numbers. I hope they're accomplished, and I do want to, the Climate Action Committee is to come up with some suggestions locally that we can contribute to this 7% per year. I just thought it was a bit misleading that we're going to try and get 7% because I think that's unrealistic. So I will support it, but I just want it to be said on the record that I find it very, I don't know, sort of hairy-fairy. It's a nice idealistic goal, and I hope we make it, but there's sure not much else there. So I've had my say.
Thank you, Councillor Beddoes. I'll go to Councillor St. Pierre as the seconder and then to Councillor Logans, please.
Thank you. As a matter of fact, we are waiting on the Climate Action Committee to provide further information on how we would achieve these 7% reductions over a yearly basis. And as discussed in our previous meeting, that information isn't included in this report. The report was excellent, but it couldn't actually go into that kind of depth. So we're waiting for that information. What I would go further to say, though, is that even if you look at the province and its 50% reduction targets and the STEP program, step 4 and 5 are completely undefined in terms of how we can achieve them. Even now, when we spoke to experts on the STEP program, they don't know how we can get to step 4 and 5. They just know that we have to. And I think that's pretty much the situation we're in. We have to actually achieve 50% reductions because that's actually going to be mandated by the province or something along those lines. And setting targets of 7% per year gives us something to shoot for. Otherwise, we are really airy-fairy. We're going to wait for our homework till what, 8 years from now, and then try and get 50% down. That's not going to work well for us. We need to be able to budget this. We need to be able to have some tangible projects to work forward on and to work on. I think it actually does work. And no, we don't know exactly how we're going to get there, but that's because no one does. But we've got all levels of government, a lot of different minds thinking on this. We can adopt the best practices, and we need to make those reductions. So we may as well set the target because otherwise we're not going to get there.
Thank you, Councillor. Over to Councillor Logans, then Bateman, please.
Yeah, I support this motion. I wasn't there for this meeting, but seeing as the mover and seconder also support it, I would just call the question.
Okay, the question has been put. So as chair, I can rule on that. And we have had a debate at Committee of the Whole, so I'm prepared to call the question then. All right, all those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the next one is that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the CAC's Data Working Group meet with the OCP Advisory Committee, Souk planning staff, and the representative from Sustainable Solutions Group to discuss GHG target setting in the OCP and provide advice on what the OCP target should be. So I'll look again for that to be moved and seconded, then we can open the floor for discussion. Councillor
Just a point of clarification is the reason I'm raising this is, as you're all aware, that I'm chairing the OCP committee, and the timing of this motion really makes it difficult to do anything because, I mean, I'll get some clarification from the chair if I might first. We've done our intake of all information. It goes back to dialogue on this Friday.
Okay.
And then it's out of our hands. So I'm not sure how to proceed.
Okay, I see where you're going here. So okay. I'm going to ask staff, I'm going to go to staff on this one. Mr. McInnes, in terms of this motion that came from Committee of the Whole and was supported, how do you see this working into the timelines? It's just a flag that Councillor Beddoes has raised as the OCP chair.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that this and the previous motion are connected in that it's really tough for us to champion or even understand a 7% solution when the targets or the work that informs that 7% solution is not with us. So I would suggest that the working group really needs to have that much more developed now to present to the OCP committee. Or they're just going to be dealing with the same thing that council is dealing with now. It's an aspirational goal, but the committee itself has committed to giving us the roadmap and the particulars of the 7% solution. So to Councillor Beddoes' conundrum, I think that we should wait until the solution is developed before it's being pitched as something that ends up in a statutory document like the OCP.
Okay, but in terms of, but this is still achievable, like this motion. I'm just looking at timelines and I don't know how they all line up, but will this fit in with the OCP's timelines in terms of getting a draft back to council? Like I'm just looking, that's sort of where I'm just needing.
So my suggestion is that will be up to the Climate Action Committee to get the work done. If they can't get it done between now and when the draft is written, or in a timely manner that can be considered before the draft is written, perhaps not. But that's my suggestion, is that that the plan needs to be a bit more developed before it can be considered as being something substantial in the OCP.
Okay, so I'll go to our council liaison, over to Councillor Bateman. You're on mute. Still muted.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, so thank you, Councillor Logans, for yeah, I had a few things to say to Councillor Beto's first comments. So on this particular subject, at the OCP Advisory Committee meeting on Thursday, there was a discussion of a very simple workshop that would allow the professionals who are in our data group sit down with the planners and the representative from Sustainable Solutions Group to share ideas and brainstorm effectively. You're now asking for that full roadmap to the 7% solution, which is a roadmap that ideally will be developed in collaboration with the district and with the Community Economic Development Committee, who we're meeting with on May 5th. So I trust that spirit is being accepted by council and the district, that this is a collaborative process. And if you're expecting the Climate Action Committee to present you with a fait accompli 7% solution, then I think you're kind of missing the point. But yeah, I think that this second part of the motion, the second motion, was really quite a simple one to get the professionals from our data group sitting down and offering their services gratis to our high-priced consultants and help shape this roadmap going forward. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Betos, again, you have a question?
Well, just that when I refer to the high-priced consultants, the high-priced consultants need this information to work on the draft that comes back to us June 14th. So other than the 50%, and I don't mind putting that in, if the Climate Action Committee wants to send a brief that I can send back to dialogue, I don't have a problem with that. And then in the future, but I think some of this should have been done beforehand, because we're going to come back to the rough draft, and then we have to adapt the rough draft, and we've got a lot of timelines. So to me, the OCP has to be done by a certain time. If we're still working on that part of it, we're never going to make our deadline. So I understand about 50%. We are mandated to put those goals into the OCP, but I'm afraid that unless the Climate Action Committee, I would like them to give me something by this Friday that I can send back to dialogue, so they can put it on their agenda and the horizon, because you know, we got to get this back by June 14th, and there's a lot of work to be done.
Okay, so the motion here is that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the CAC Data's Working Group meets with the OCP Advisory Committee, Souk planning staff, and the representatives from Sustainable Solutions Group to discuss the GHG target and the OCP and provide our advice on what the OCP target should be. So I think it's the case of I just read this as best efforts to connect and to meet timelines. Should Council so move this? Okay, so I'll look for a mover, please. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Thank you.
Could you read that back? I'm not quite clear, Your Worship, as to how that motion, you're changing the motion, right? You made a new motion.
I'm not changing the motion. It's exactly as it read. I just said that it would have to be best efforts. Everyone, there's timelines here. We lost a week because of Committee of the Whole recommending to Council. But everyone knows that there's timelines, so it's just making best efforts to make sure that we don't delay the OCP. Like, I read out what was in here. I read out the motion.
Yeah, I can see the motion. I just, okay.
I didn't make any changes to it unless I stumbled or something. I'm sorry, there's a caller here that's at 1778-425-1943. Could you please put your phone on mute? Okay, thank you. Okay, so the motion is moved and seconded. Call the question, please. All those in favor, please. And anyone opposed?
I'm not sure what I'm getting and when, so that's all. Send me something
Okay.
by Friday. Send me anything.
Okay. Okay. So moving on to item 11. So reports. First item up is 11.1, the service agreement update. So I'll turn this over to staff, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see
Perfect.
you too. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, I got a new headset. That's why I want to make sure it was working. I don't have a formal presentation PowerPoint to go along with this. As Council requested in the strategic priorities, we've reached out to the current community service agreement recipients and got their latest and greatest information from them, which was provided to Council in the report. So just looking for Council to receive this report for information. Obviously happy to answer any further questions you may have. And the request from the Souk Region Chamber of Commerce is for Council support to enter into a 2-year service agreement with them expiring December 31st, 2022. So would be looking for Council direction on that.
Okay, so I'll open it up for questions first, and then we can consider the suggested actions. So any questions from members of Council? Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, just going back from memory, and I thought that when we reinstated the Chamber of Commerce, we were going to do it on a 1-year basis to see how things developed. And I understand with COVID, it's been a hell of a year to judge anything. But I see that we're also looking into extending it into 2022. And I wonder if that's what our original intent was. Just out there for discussion.
Maybe I'll answer just from memory. Was that when they came forward, it was okay, well, let's do 1 year and then we'll reevaluate. So is the 2-year that is in this proposal, is that to line up with the other service agreements, or why was the 2 years picked?
Through Your Worship, yes, that's correct. It's just
Okay.
because all the remaining agreements expire December 31st, 2022. So it seems logical to have them all align and get Council to confirm them all at that point in time. So it's obviously completely up to Council's discretion if you want to renew it, and if so, for what the term is. And it would just be staff would recommend if you wanted to do a multi-year term, just to have it expire on December 2022.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from members of Council? Councillor Bateman?
Yes, through you to Ms. Gray. Did all of our contractees deliver as of March 31st complete operations report and a year-end financial statement?
Through Your Worship, I'm not sure of the exact date, if it was all by March 31st, but it was definitely in time to have it on the agenda for this report. So they may have been, I think there was one straggler, but the majority of them had the information in as we requested.
Okay, so the date's rather irrelevant, but the actual materials that we expect from each of the contractees?
Yes, like that's historically kind of the information we've been provided from them. So that's why this information has been provided to Council. And looking for feedback from Council if you want further information from these organizations.
Yeah, I didn't see a financial report from Souk Region Tourism Association. Did you circulate that? I know you sent out some reports separately via email.
The Tourism Association, I believe it was included in their annual report. Was there something in their actual annual report? There was a couple organizations that had it in their report. And then I
didn't see the report in this agenda tonight. Sorry.
Let me just double check then.
I believe it's at the bottom of the, there's all the attachments. Scroll down.
Yeah, there's sort of a fall 2020 DOS update, like a one-pager I see attached, and then it's the first one in, and then it goes on to the Historical Society search-in and so forth.
Yeah, I know it's been such an unusual year that people wouldn't necessarily deliver exactly as we asked.
So I have a question for staff, and it is in regards to the Souk Region Tourism Association. Is in addition to the funds that they had received in the service agreement, they were also given $15,000 back in maybe 2016 or 17 to complete the hotel tax report. Like, we provided those funds for that report to be completed. Do you have any update on where that is or how that those funds were spent?
I don't have an update at this time on that. I can definitely look into that and find some information for you on that. I wasn't
Okay.
aware that, yeah, I hadn't looked back to 2016. I didn't realize there was still information outstanding from that.
I don't recall the exact year, but it was an additional, they came to council at some point and requested either $10,000 or $15,000, of which it wasn't this council, it was certainly in the last term, had awarded with the understanding that that would lead to the implementation of the hotel tax. And then there's been nothing received.
It's
So
15
that's
grand,
outstanding.
and it was the Volunteer Economic Development Group that came forward. And I believe that Norm's been liaisoning with Doug Wittich from that group. And so he may have more information on that.
But the funds were given to Strata, not to the EDG group. It was the director of Strata that came forward and asked for the funds. So if it shifted and changed hands, then that's the bouncing ball that I'm just having troubles following right now.
As the people that were involved in that group and that work are now working in the active group as well now.
But there's still no financial report to where the funding went. So like it was $15,000. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying that Norm's been working with Doug Wittich, and Doug was an active participant in that group. So maybe Norm has more insight. So through your worship to Norm, do you have more information on that?
Yes, Sue Wilkie has been working with both the president of Strata and Caleb from Tourism Vancouver Island, just to understand the process to complete the MRDT study. My understanding is there is still money that's been unspent, but I don't have a full report for council this evening. I do know that it's a priority for Sue to sort of understand where we're at and understand the process to complete the work for the MRDT study, and to work with Strata to find out what money has been spent on what and how much is still remaining.
Okay. Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
Yes, I'm also curious about the lack of the information. I think, Ms. Gray, you mentioned, I think you said that we had received an annual report from Strata. Should we maybe be tabling this until we actually have the report in hand, until it's circulated? Because it's really where we'd be receiving information an incomplete report at this point in time. Or at least that's what I'm thinking. And I'd love to know whether or not that's appropriate or not.
Just Councillor St. Pierre, I mean, I think there's sort of two parts to this. So this is an update, and yes, I totally see your point. And then we have, so there's kind of that element that's still outstanding, but at the same time, the other part is to start the new service agreement with the chamber. So if council, we wouldn't want to hold them up because another group we're waiting on reports. So there's sort of two different things happening.
But the two motions, I think, are fairly separate. We could actually enter into an agreement with the Chamber of Commerce and still table discussion of whether or not we want to receive the report for information until we have all the information. And I'm not sure if that's appropriate or not, but I'd like to consider that.
It would be. I'll go to Councillor Logan's and then we can look at these motions. I'm getting the questions. Okay, Councillor Logan's.
No, that St. Pierre completely read my mind. I've had concerns about the budget and reports from Strata for many years, so I'd like to have that information before moving ahead, but I'm happy to move ahead the Chamber's agreement. and table the rest.
Okay. Okay, so why don't we start with that? We'll do these separately. And so the first one is that on the part where it says that council received this report for information, I hear a motion to table from Councillor St. Pierre that council table receipt of this report when all information has been received from all of the organizations. And I'm just saying all in case there's something missing from anyone else. I don't sense that there is, but I can't say for certainty that that's the case. Okay, so a motion to table until all.
Excuse me, Your Worship, can I just amend that slightly to?
Yes, thank you.
Or, yeah.
Can you read it out then? Thank you.
It's just that council that council postpone the item for the further information.
Okay. So we're postponing until further information is received. Got it. Thank you. Okay, so Councillor St. Pierre, that's your motion. Are you comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay, Councillor Logan's the second.
Yep.
Okay, discussion on postponement. Okay, I'll call the question. We're postponing item 1. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. The next one is that council directs staff to enter into a 2-year service agreement with the Souk Region Chamber of Commerce for $28,150 in 2021 and $28,713 in 2022.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Logans. Any discussion? Councillor Beddoes on the motion, please.
Yeah, just on that one item, and Your Worship, you also remember it the same way I did, that we were only going to do it for 1 year until we saw what was coming. And I understand that COVID has caused some problems. I certainly have no problem for this coming year, but I am a little reluctant for 2022. The whole idea was that we had some reluctance, even going to this, and we were going to wait and see if they, I hate to say it, prove themselves, but see something more than we've seen in the past. So here we are, we're going to give them 2 years. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, because I think they have pulled up their socks quite a bit. But I just wanted to, going back to what we talked about at that particular time, it was pretty clear by council at that time that it was just going to be for the 1 year. I don't mind extending it for another year, but into 2022, I do have a few misgivings. I'll just throw that out there for other people to comment on, but it's just a concern.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Beddoes. I'll go to Councillor St. Pierre, then Logans, please.
Yeah, I do remember it more or less the same way as you do, Councillor Beddoes. I do, however, feel that the Chamber of Commerce has had an opportunity during COVID, under trying circumstances, to actually put a number of initiatives out. They seem to have gotten themselves pretty well organized. They're doing good work in the community. We have a strong focus at this point on local economic development, and I think they're a strong player, and it would be better to resource them and allow them to actually plan ahead a bit with a 2-year budget rather than going year to year. We need a Chamber of Commerce. I think they seem to be doing a really good job at this point in time, and that would be why I think it's appropriate at this point.
Okay, thank you. Over to Councillor Logans.
Yeah, 100% appropriate at this time. I definitely agree that we can move them to the same date as all of the other service agreements. I was probably one of the most skeptical out of anyone when I saw that first request come forward, and I was not very happy that we were even funding a year. So I think seeing what I have and seeing the dedication that's been put forward and the energy and desire to move this community forward economically, I'm definitely in support of this motion.
Okay, thank you. Over to Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, thank you. I'll make a statement as well, but I have a question. And the statement is, yes, thank you, Chamber of Commerce. And I think these service agreements are designed to ensure stability so that planning can move forward. My one question was, and this too is a statement, it would be good to have seen the the service agreement that we agreed to last year as part of tonight's agenda. Each one of these agreements seems to have a Schedule A that has very explicit instructions from the district on what we expect to receive. And yeah, I didn't have an opportunity to look that up before tonight's meeting.
Okay, no, good point. Councillor Beddoes, we're second
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I'm okay with moving forward on it. I was just interested in getting my colleagues' opinion since we did talk about it at great length, and even Councillor Logans was saying that she was very skeptical back then and not so much now. That's very valuable to me, and I'm okay with moving ahead.
Okay, thank you, Council. And I will share that they have really, you know, have I think in the report that they've put here, and while it isn't the Schedule A that we're accustomed to seeing, there is a very solid plan here on what they've been highlighting and working on, what their objectives are going forward. A lot of thoughtful details included in here, and I'm in support as well, and just hoping that this gives their ability to plan ahead and to work together, and then look forward to like a robust decision or discussion as we near the end of all these service agreements, and then look to see what they look like going forward from there. So on that note, I'm just going to move on and call the questions. We have the motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so next up is 11.2, Strata Title Conversion Approval for 7002 Brailsford Place. So I'll turn this to our staff, please. Good evening, Mr. Palau.
Good evening, thank you. So we have a couple Strata conversion approvals on the agenda tonight. The first one of the two is before you because standard in the process of the duplexes that have been constructed along Brailsford, typically what will occur during the construction phase is the duplex itself will be created into a strata and registered at Land Titles Office. And because of that time, those duplexes have not been occupied, and therefore council would not see an application such as tonight's before them. It would simply go to the Land Titles Office for registration without council approval. As you can see in the attachment, the applicants provide an explanation of what had happened. So 2 years ago, their agent had not registered the plan at the Land Titles Office, and since that time, the duplex has now been occupied. So as per district policy, council approval is required because these dwelling units are now being occupied. So in order to continue on with their original plan, council will require approval of it for the applicant to proceed with it being registered. And as a subsequent portion to the recommendation, also staff will also need to just confirm that an updated plan has been provided, because these are the submissions from 2 years ago where it was intended that they were not previously occupied. So it will be the surveyor's responsibility to now update that with a revised plan, now demonstrating that the Property Act sections are being complied for previously occupied buildings. So staff will make sure that that portion is provided in the plan that would be submitted if council is to support conversion tonight. With that concludes presentation for this report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Palau. Are there questions for Mr. Palau? Councillor St. Pierre, go ahead.
Yes, I was mostly curious, through your worship, I was mostly curious about the purpose for the stratification at this point in time. And what are the benefits to the applicant given that they don't want to sell? It seems to be that most of the time stratification is so that you can actually have clear title, and so you can actually either get a mortgage on something or sell it. So do you have an idea of why they're sticking to their original plan so closely?
Sure. So I don't have specific details as to what the applicant's intentions were, but usually with these duplexes that have been constructed, if you look at the adjacent properties, they've all followed through with this process. So just in terms of future and dealing with title and ownership, it is one way to address that for the future. However, the current intent right now is to continue on with that rental piece for this. So I'm sure they're wanting to complete their original intentions for this, and if this is just a minor hiccup in the process that wasn't addressed 2 years ago when it wouldn't have required council approval.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation before us tonight is that council
Hello, Mayor
approve.
Tait.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Could I jump in quickly with a question? I think that the policy states the priority of rental accommodation over privately owned housing in the area. And yes, the applicants are stating that they will keep it as rentals. But what happens 5 years down the road if indeed the applicant sells this property? Is there a covenant to keep it as a rental?
There isn't a covenant that's accompanying this. So if there were to be a selling of the property, it would be up to the new landowners of that title to determine what they were going to do with that property. If this were not to be converted tonight, then it would just remain as the one title for the property and continue as a rental, or be sold off to somebody else, and they would choose how they want to have the property occupied.
So if 5 years down the road it does sell, yeah, I can't figure this out. Thank you. I'll leave it there.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre, did you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I did follow up on Councillor Bateman's question, actually.
Okay.
If not 5 years from now, but 2 weeks from now, the applicant wanted to sell, does the present tenant have any sort of recourse?
Those would be private matters between the landowner and the tenant as part of their
That's a
agreement.
big no. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so the recommendation here is that council approve the strata title conversion of previously occupied duplex on the property legally described as Lot 19, Section 21, Souk District Plan, EPP 82219, 7002/7004, Brailsford Place, and that council authorize the mayor to sign the approval of the strata plan once staff confirm the survey has been updated with the relevant sections of the Strata Property Act. So I'll look for council, should anyone wish to move that recommendation. Moved by Councillor Lajeunesse. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. So discussion, Councillor Lajeunesse, anything to motivate on?
Nothing
Okay.
to add.
All right, Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the lack of basically protection for the tenants, but it sounds from staff as if the applicants are operating in good faith and don't intend to get rid of their tenant. So I'm willing to move forward because these people have an investment that they want to protect in the future. But I wish we had some sort of tools at our disposal to actually protect the tenant in some way.
Okay, other comments from members of council? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Is anyone opposed? Okay, I have a bit of a delay, so can I do this again, please? All those in favor, please?
Councillor Bateman had another comment, I think.
No, we're done. I'm calling the question as chair. You can challenge my ruling if you so like, but we're moving on. Any opposed, please?
Yeah, I'll oppose.
Okay, Councillor Bateman is opposed, but I need you to move. Let's focus and let's move these motions, okay? That's carried. Next up is 11.3. So another strata title conversion for West Coast Road. So over to Mr. Powell, please.
Thank you. So this one at 7691 West Coast Road, in the attached information to this report, you'll see from the applicants, their original intention was to have 3 families registered on title for this, and as part of the RU2 zone, based on its parcel size, so it's approximately 2.8 hectares, the RU2 zone allows for 3 dwellings to be constructed on the property. So through that, typically the RU2 zone will experience building strata subdivisions to occur. So that is what is happening in this instance. However, because there was previously occupied buildings on the property at the time this proposal was being put forward, the applicant again is required to get council approval. So they are nearing the end stages of having the 3 lots segmented out and having the necessary dwellings for each of the families placed on the property. However, they formally need to obtain the necessary strata titles to then create those separations. So that is what is before council. All the necessary considerations of the policy have been considered by staff. As there was an older building on the property, a code compliance report was required, and the building division has reviewed it and accepted it. And as well, there is a component because it's adjacent to the highway that the ministry is required to sign off. However, an approval by council tonight would not have any further components that would affect that. It's a separate process that will be dealt with between the approving officer and the Ministry of Transportation. So at this point, those are the main points for this proposal, and to accommodate those 3 families where no rentals have ever occurred on the property since the current applicants have taken ownership of the property.
Okay, questions? Thank you, Mr. Pallo. Over to Councillor St. Pierre.
I'd just like to move the motion.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre is moving the motion, and I'm just going to, sorry here, bear with me here. It's just scrolling on the iPad here. Okay, so this one is that council approve the strata title conversion of previously occupied buildings on the lot legally described as Lot A, Section 27, Outer Point Plan, EPP 84398, 7691, 7687, and 7683 West Coast Road, and that council authorize the mayor to sign the approval for strata plan EPS 5183. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Logans. So Mike, I just have a comment or an observation between this one and the previous one, and I'm just curious why the owner of this one, or the applicant in this case, has a visible name, whereas the previous one, the applicant's name has been redacted. I don't understand why an applicant's name would be redacted on anything. I'm not sure, Mr. Pallo, if that's a question you could answer, but I mean, for the sake of transparency, I'd like to know who we're dealing with. So I'm just confused on that, if staff could answer that for me.
I know on this application, I can see the applicant's name is visible, and it's a company with the information. The other application.
If I may, Your Worship, it is very likely that that is personal contact information, which would be severed under the Freedom of Information Act.
But it just says owners of property. Like for the previous one, it just says owners of property. Like there's nothing to say who. It's just not consistent. Like one, I mean, we can tell where this applicant actually works because all of that information is there, including their name. So, I mean, it's just, I can follow up with you later. I just feel that the applicants should be visible in some way. Anyway. Okay, Councillor Bateman, a comment? This one's been moved and seconded, so I'll look for a comment, please.
Yeah, so I'll make a comparison as you did with these two proposals. In the first case, in this one, there's no existing rental stock. So the residential strata title conversion policy of 2010 of the District of Souk says in order to protect the availability of existing rental stock and the priority of rental accommodation over privately owned housing in the area. So I will be voting in favor of this conversion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Any other comments from members of council? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. So next up is item 11.4, Development Approval Program Project Grant Application. So we have a report here in front of us, and I'll ask staff if there's anything further that you wish to add to this report.
Perfect. Thank you, Worship. So report in front of council tonight. I've been working with Mr. Paolo and Ms. Gray on structuring development approvals program. So UBCM's come out with a great grant opportunity. We've put a program together comprising of 5 segments. One is to integrate all building permit applications through e-commerce My City and integrating it with Tempest. Second component of it is major subdivision development process review that would be conducted by external consultants and come in and work with directors as well as senior staff to review existing processes, procedures, guidelines, bylaws, policies. Third component of it is just a direct Tempest consultation, looking at a business overview for our existing software programs and platforms, what it's doing for us, what more it could do for us, and working with senior staff on getting the best we can out of the program we're using. The fourth component of it is streamlining into an electronic plan review, which will extremely expedite that process. It's through Blue Imp, or it'll be done through Tempest, and this will streamline all of our design reviews and internal reviews to get them back in a more timely manner. Fifth component, again, is utilizing consultants not only to facilitate this entire program, but to continue working with staff, junior staff, and some senior staff on facilitating referrals, design reviews, and working with functions of the approving officer. So we think we put together an excellent program here. Funding is for 100% funding, and we are requesting council support tonight to support the development approvals program and to support staff to make an application up to an amount of $494,000 to 70, and that staff will facilitate the project management of this program.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carter, for the report and for just applying for the funds as they come available. I think it's important that we do that and that we are prepared for the application intakes. Okay, questions. I saw someone's hand. Councillor St. Pierre, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. This looks like some fantastic work, which I'm hoping, even if the grant application, for whatever reason, was not to come through, this looks like a plan in terms of how to actually improve our development process regardless. Is that correct? And would we expect requests from staff at a future date to basically fund various phases, and what would that look like?
Excellent question. Through your worship, so yes, the program will help us facilitate all our approval processes for developments. If not successful with this program, this is something that we would be able to bring back in phases. Some of them are linked to each other, some of them independently. We'd continue on with the restructuring and then look at bringing segments forward through 2022 and going forward from that.
Thank you. Wonderful work.
Okay. Other questions from members of council? Okay, so the recommendation is that council support the proposed development approvals program project for the District of Souk, and that council direct staff to submit a grant application to the UBCM Local Government Development Approvals Program up to an amount of $494,270 to fund the district's development approvals program project and provide overall grant management accordingly. So I'll look for a mover, please. Okay, I heard Councillor Logan's and Councillor Bateman as the seconder. Just one thing I'll add is, as this work unfolds and you're successful, and hopefully we are successful with the application, perhaps there's an ability to inform the development community outwards of the work we're doing and also what they can do to submit complete applications, because that will just help everyone move along through the system faster. I'm hearing that we're still receiving incomplete applications, and my concern is the impact this has on necessary capital projects. We only have so many staff that are juggling many plates right now, and the more we can do to get complete applications and the message that the clock doesn't start ticking, or you can't start counting your days until a complete application is arrived. Bits and pieces that arrive months and then straggle in doesn't start anything with us. It just slows everything down. So I'm hoping that we can find a way to continue working together. What education is needed out in the community, and let's get complete applications in so that we can all get the infrastructure we need and the development that we desire in our community. Anyway, thank you for listening. I will call the question then. All those in favor, please?
Comment.
Oh, sorry.
Well, as a seconder, I wasn't given an opportunity.
Okay, you can
Okay.
always say point of order and I can rule.
Point of order.
But okay, point of order, I have to acknowledge as chair. So what is your point, Councillor?
Well, my point was that I wasn't given an opportunity as the seconder of that motion to speak to it.
Okay, so then I will pause and you can speak, but please go ahead.
I'm feeling edgy tonight. Sorry about this. I just wanted to say, I think a lot of us were trying to get our hands up to move that motion. Your point around the legendary 48-hour approvals in Langford, for example, I was just looking at that, and it very clearly states that all paperwork has to be filled out to the letter to get that 48-hour promise. And I just also wanted to cite what our CAO told us at the Committee of the Whole in showing us the statistical trends, that the average numbers of days to issue permits, residential permits in Souk have been reduced by a third in the last 2 years, from 62 days down to 43. So with this new program, I'm sure it's just onwards and upwards to better service. Blah de blah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Okay, so I will make a point of looking for hands. Those of you, you need to move your hand though almost in front of your face so I can see it, because doing this on the side, I don't know what that is. I can't see your hands.
And
Okay,
hand button.
or use a raise hand button that we have in front of us. Those things will help. Okay, so now the motion has been moved in second. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. I see all the hands. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Great work, Mr. Carter. On to 11.5, the Sun River Community Gardens. So we have a report with a suite of recommendations. I'll ask staff if there's anything further to add to this report.
Nothing further, Your Worship, other than to say that just for Council's benefit, that it was always anticipated since a license was granted for the Sun River Community Gardens that the Sun Rivers Allotment Garden Society would form at some point and formalize and apply for society status. That has now happened. In the interim, we did need a legal entity to enter into an agreement with, so the Souk Region Food Cheese Society had filled that position. The two groups have decided that they can work together, and that's the reason why we have two different licenses on the docket tonight. And just one other point, Your Worship, something subsequent to the agenda being published is there is a request, and I'm going to suggest that in the recommendations, the first two recommendations, that the addition of adding bullet number 5 on Schedule A, Appendix 2 in the introduction section, including the wording that the community spaces will remain as park-like areas for visitors and appropriate events at the Sun River Community Gardens and Community Orchard. So both groups have suggested that they want to include that 5th bullet so that there's some rules around how those community spaces remain. So I will leave it there and answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McInnes. So that amendment, though, doesn't change the recommended motions that you have brought forward, though?
It does. So the amendment to the recommendations that are on the agenda is to the first recommendation would read that the council approve the 2021 license of occupation agreement with the Souk Region Fuchi Society at the Sun River Communities Gardens, including adding bullet number 5 on Schedule A, Appendix 2, with the wording that the community spaces will remain as park-like areas for visitors and appropriate events at the Sun River Community Gardens and Orchard, and that same be added to the end of recommendation number 2 for the Sun River Allotment Garden Society license. Is that clear, or was that really messy?
Well, it's kind of both, because when I read it out, I'm not going to remember all of that. So I'm just trying to find something that I can add to the recommendation when we vote on it so that it's clear. So
I'm happy to read them out if you wish, Your Worship.
excellent. I'm going to go to you for that then. So I'll go to members of council for questions, and then once we complete that, I'll have Mr. McInnes read out the recommendations. Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Simple.
You have no questions? You're good?
No.
Okay. Any other questions from any members of council? Okay, so Mr. McInnes, you have the floor on the recommendations.
Thank you, Your Worship. Recommend that council approve the 2021 license of occupation agreement with the Souk Region Fuchi Society, Society number 54168, at the Sun River Community Gardens, including bullet number 5 on Schedule A, Appendix 2, which reads that the community spaces will remain as park-like areas for visitors and appropriate events at the Sun River Community Gardens and Community Orchard.
Okay, I think we can do all of them together. So do you want to read out the second one, and then we can just vote on them together in a block?
You bet. The second recommendation would be that council approve the 2021 license of occupation agreement with the Sun River Allotment Garden Society, Society number 0074156, at the Sun River Community Gardens, including bullet 5 on Schedule A, Appendix 2, which reads the community spaces will remain as park-like areas for visitors and appropriate events at the Sun River Community Gardens and Community Orchard.
Perfect, thank you. And then the third part is that council authorizes the chief administrative officer and corporate officer to execute the license of occupation agreement subject to legal review and any required notice of disposition. Okay, so I'll look for a mover, please, and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Beddoes and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Looking for comments on the 3 recommendations that are in front of us. Comments? Just excellent work. This is such an exciting corner of our community. All right, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, that's through our report section. We're into bylaws now, starting with 12.1. Fees and charges. So that is that council adopt this bylaw cited as fees and charges amendment bylaw number 796752-02-2021. I'll look for a mover to adopt, please.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Logans. We're on adoption, so I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next is item 12.2, revenue anticipation, so that council adopt the bylaw cited as revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw number 814-2021. Moving adoption by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by La Jeunesse. I'll call a question. All in favor, please. And none opposed. For the viewing public, because we've gone through several readings of this, council has already had discussions, so that's why we're not discussing them further at this point. Okay, 12.3, fire protection, that council adopt the bylaw cited as fire protection services bylaw number 815-292-8-2021. So I'll move adoption, please, by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. 12.4. So this one we have some discussion. So business license bylaw, additional information. So over to staff, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. At a recent meeting, council received public input on business license bylaw 778. and it was postponed until additional information could be brought back clarifying certain issues around farm stands. Happy to provide the information in the report. I think there was a misunderstanding that it is a new requirement of the business license bylaw that farm stands are required to have a business license. They always have been required to have a business license. I believe that the issue came forward just simply from the fact that we have now defined a farm stand versus a, I believe, farm market, sorry. And so I know that there was a member of the public concerned that they would now have to have a business license. The simple fact of the matter is they always were required to have a business license. Additional issues around farm stand licenses or home business licenses are confirmation that vendors at farmers markets are required to hold their own business license unless the vendor falls under the definition of a farm stand, which is unaltered products. The Agricultural Land Commission has confirmed that the district can require business licenses on lands both within and outside of the ALR boundaries. Vancouver Island Health Authority has confirmed that there are some food products that are deemed low risk, although they do not provide a list of such low risk food products that do not need to be required at a VHA approved facility. They encourage all individuals that are producing product for sale to contact them to see if a VHA inspection is required. Regardless, this does not again negate the need for a district business license. And then the final item is just around the issue of altered or unaltered farm food products. The ALC policy has a definition that council could choose to incorporate into the bylaw that the definition is processing means the process of adding value to a primary farm commodity or product by physical, biological, or other means, including but not limited to fermentation, cooking, canning, smoking, or drying. So if council wants, they could amend the bylaw at third reading to add that definition. But essentially anything other than a product that is either freshly picked produce or eggs, those are deemed unaltered products. Almost anything else that is sold at a farm stand would be considered altered and require that business license. And that's all of the additional information I have.
Thank you, Ms. Mushada. So open it up for questions. Councillor Beddoes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I guess not a problem, but it was sort of brought to my attention that there are very few of these farm stands around, and it's so difficult for these little farming operations to make a buck that I'm just wondering if it seems to be established that they do need a license. Is there any opportunity that we can waive that fee for them? They could still have to get the license, but we could either reduce it or make it free like they do, or maybe for some other people. I guess where I'm coming in is, you know, with this food scarcity and all these problems, adding another $100 or so on somebody's bottom line can be very discouraging. And I'm just wondering, we want people to try and grow as much food as we can around here and make a few changes to it and make a dollar. That I don't mind having the permit, but I just wonder if we can waive the fee for those farm stands, just for a discussion for the council.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Mushada, do you have a response there?
Thank you, Your Worship. For the farm stands as a home-based business is $50 a year. And I think the argument could be made that many people that are operating a home-based business could be in the similar situation. However, if council did want to identify farm or producing businesses, I guess, we could add farm stand. Sorry, let me get the right terminology here. Yeah, we could add farm stands to the exemption for farm. So the part of the bylaw that speaks to the unaltered products, we could add farm stands to that exemption if it was council's desire.
Okay, but otherwise it's $50 a year. Okay. Councillor St. Pierre?
I've got a few questions. Thank you. Through your worship, what is the intent and purpose of a business license in the first place? So what advantage does the person holding a business license actually receive from holding a business license?
The purpose of a business license is to ensure that it meets the zoning requirements, building requirements, and safety requirements. So a business license application, once received, is vetted through our planning department to ensure it meets the zoning. It's vetted through our building department to ensure that any required business licenses, building permits and or building code safety requirements are met. And then it's also vetted through our fire department. And if there are, those are mostly for commercial businesses, but depending on the type of business, the fire department will conduct an on-site safety visit.
All right. And it sounds like the business license fee is to pay for all of this vetting to happen so that it can go through the various departments and make sure that everything is appropriate for business to operate. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would we actually expect farm stands to be going through a similar process with any sort of inspection or anything along those lines? Because my sense is that for a farm stand or for many farm stands, this is just going to be a waste of our staff resources to actually go through this process, and not even worth $50 that we would actually get. And I think that by law, in terms of agriculture, you're actually allowed to have a farm stand anyway. So it's not as if the district can actually stop that from happening. So I don't know that I can't quite agree with adding the additional paperwork, the additional uncertainty too, because unaltered and altered, it's going to be a little bit confusing. People are going to wonder what's going on. We do need, as Councillor Beddoes has pointed out, more food to be produced. We have a lot of people that are looking for some way to make ends meet. And so actually, if you have a garden going and you want to sell something at a farm stand, it makes sense to do so. But I don't know that it's necessarily advantageous to the district in any way to actually have a business license for farm stands, either altered or unaltered. Because when we look at altered, we're looking at things like cookies, lemonade, and jams. It's a bit odd. VHA is already going to have a list of things that are okay. I think that's probably covering our residents in that way. As it stands, I don't think that I can really support the motion if it includes farm stands in this way. I don't think it's actually the benefit of the community.
Okay, no, that's fair, Councillor St. Pierre. And we can look at this as we have more discussion. Councillor Bateman, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you for the report, which did systematically address the questions that were raised on March 22nd. And of course, we're kind of fixated on farm stands, but this is a business license bylaw for all of Souk and intermunicipal businesses. I note that there are about 600 businesses in Souk that currently have licenses. I'm curious, and my question is, what kind of enforcement? I noted there were a number of businesses that I know of that weren't on that list of 2020 license holders. How do we enforce this? Or do we?
I will apologize. There was actually another report that should have come forward tonight on business license fees. So unfortunately, it got missed on the agenda. So it will have to come forward to our next regular meeting. But that is the meeting that we are going to be presenting council with the issue of business license fees and enforcement, and seeking council direction to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, just to Councillor St. Pierre's question earlier about the advantages for a business license, we've heard from staff just what the district's process is. Just on the other side, where I've heard from business owners is some of them, there was at one time a comment made as to whether or not we should even have a policy or even be asking for business licenses. When that came forward, I received calls from businesses that said they need to have the license to show whether it's for borrowing, insurance purposes. We have companies in our community that export. They need the license to be able to do that, to export to other places, to get other approvals in place. So from the business side of things, that's where it's needed. I just wanted to share that, that has been the sentiment that has come up. The district itself has a policy where we won't procure any services or goods from a business that doesn't have an active and valid business license. So that was done to get other businesses who maybe don't need those things to actually get a business license in place so we can further support local. So I'll just leave it at that. Councillor Logans and Beddoes, please.
Yes, I support this motion and I'm happy to have it move forward if that's the will of council. I know there are concerns and I'm glad we're having this discussion. However, I don't think it's worth holding this bylaw up or making huge adjustments to it in regards to farm stands. But one thing to add on to what Mayor Tait was saying is that consumers are also ones that like to know that businesses have business licenses as a form of, or as something to legitimize them as well. And that goes with farms and other types of businesses. So on top of the benefits to the business, there are benefits to the community as well.
Okay, so we don't have a motion on the floor, so I'll come back to you, Councillor Logans, to make that motion. Councillor, just getting questions still. So Councillor Beddoes, do you have a question?
Well, just the question is that our corporate officer made a recommendation in regards to the fee for the farm stand, which I thought was an excellent one. I haven't heard a whole lot of complaints. I understand what Councillor St. Pierre says, but the one complaint I did hear was that some of these struggling farmers, and there's not many that have stands, I think they could benefit by not paying the $50, but still having to put out to get a license. And I thought that was a really good compromise that Ms. Machado put out, and I would certainly like that to be considered.
Okay, so Councillor Logans, or Councillor St. Pierre, you have another question, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Logans for a motion.
No, actually, I was going to suggest what Councillor Beddoes suggested, so that's fine.
Okay, so I'll go to Councillor Logans for a motion, please.
Did we haven't already moved the report for information, right?
No,
Or-
we have no motion on the floor. I've just been getting questions.
Then I'll start with the easy one.
Okay.
First, that we get something we can all agree on, right? That we received the report for information.
Okay, so let's deal with that one first. Anything further? Okay, I needed a seconder. So Councillor St. Pierre, I'll have you second that to receive for information, and I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And none opposed. Thank you. Okay, so the second part is Ms. Machado gave some insight into what council could consider doing that would require third reading to be, it would be an amended third reading. It would be to make that amendment, or council could look to just proceed as stated with no changes to anything. So there's two options here to consider. Since another one seems to be introduced. So Councillor St. Pierre.
I would be willing to move the amended motion. Having said that, I do think that it's unnecessary to have.
Okay, you can't motivate until we have a seconder. Okay, so Councillor St. Pierre would like to move that amended third reading, which which our staff had suggested would be that farm stands obtain a business license. However, there would be a category where there would be no fee attached. Correct, Ms. Machado?
I'll second that.
Through your worship, I think I know this is delaying it again, but I think that the bylaw is going to need to be reworked slightly, and I would need further direction from council. I'm looking at section 44 of the bylaw where it talks about farm retail sales and farm stands. So I think that we could add farm stands back in there, but I just wanted to clarify, item 44, it says persons that sell baked, canned, and otherwise altered natural food products. I think that's the piece we want to move out. And I guess to clarify, so currently farm stands are not required to hold a license. Do we want farm retail sales to hold a license and not be charged, or do we just want to group them in with the farm stands? And then the second part of section 44 talks about persons that sell artwork or handcrafted items are also required to apply for a license. I think we need to separate those pieces out. So I would like to take this away and bring back an amended bylaw so that we're all on the same page.
Okay, see a bunch of hands here for questions. Councillor Logans and then Beddoes.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we postpone this motion because if we're talking about fees and we don't have the fee bylaw in front of us, that's kind of ridiculous. So I would prefer if we have a fee discussion when we have information on the other fees.
Okay, so what I'll do then is a motion to postpone this discussion until further information is received. Does that work?
Can I ask council to clarify though, if they wanted to separate out the farm stands and the artwork and handcrafted items?
I'll ask for feedback. Councillor Beddoes, I see you nodding. Do you want to
Yes,
just add some clarity there?
Yes, I would very much, as Ms. Machado said, is to sort of take them out of that and add some clarity to it. I think she understands what needs to be done, and postponing it, she can bring it back with those changes and the fee schedule, and we'd all be a lot wiser. So I'm happy with just, I hope that gives direction, I thought, but she might need it from other councillors as well.
If I may,
Okay.
Your Worship, so I understand that piece. So basically, we're looking at food producers. We want to provide that exemption. But currently, the bylaw is written where farm stands, so those that sell unaltered products, are not required to hold a license. They don't need to go through the process. Is that what we would like to see for farm retail sales? Or we still
No.
want them to have to apply for a license, but we're strictly going to waive the fee?
What I see, and council, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they would still require the license, but we would look at eliminating the $50 fee.
That's how I see it.
But because of the processing and the like that's involved there, I think there's some comfort that there's some safety around the product that's been altered, perhaps. Okay, is that what everyone is agreeing?
That's
Councillor
understood.
Bateman?
We'll bring that back to
Okay.
the next meeting.
Just for
Okay.
clarity, though, we're postponing it because I don't actually agree with this motion whatsoever, but I just want to make sure we're postponing this and we're not thinking that we all agree on this and we're going to talk about it next time.
Yeah, there's going to be there is going to be debate the next time. So just Ms. Machado, I don't feel that all of council is 100% on board either. I think where council agrees, I think, is that that the farm stands remain as is, no valid business license for those unaltered products, but that the other ones, what I'm hearing is some of council wants to see the business license applied for, and some want to see that there's no fee attached, and some may feel that there should be a fee attached. But I think everyone wants to see that the business license is applied for. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Councillor St. Pierre? Yes.
Thank you, Worship. Based on what you were saying, I was wondering if Ms. Machado could actually provide options as staff has done so well in the past. Just, sounds like we've got a number of different options that you've just put forward. If there could be a recommended option and the other options that are to be explored for discussion.
Yeah, so you could put this forward, Ms. Machado, as option A, and then maybe option B would be okay. I see nodding. She's we're all on the same page here. Okay, so motion has been postponed by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Councillor Bateman, do you still have
Yeah.
another point?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, it would be great to see the kind of options that our corporate officer has presented tonight, again, in this next one. I'd just like to ensure that that unaltered definition be added to the updated bylaw, which makes a lot of sense to me and addresses Mrs. Luer's concerns directly.
Exempt all
Okay.
farm products, it's not required. So I will include that as an option.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So we have a motion to postpone that's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question then. All those in favor of postponement? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, 12.5, property tax rate bylaw. We have our report here for property tax rate bylaw. A little background. I'll ask our staff anything further to add to this report today.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing big to add. Just wanted to highlight a couple of points that were not included in the report, and that was that in 2021 there were 161 properties added to Souk, 144 residential and 13 business. And those properties brought in an additional $262,000 of non-market revenue to the district for 2021 purposes. And the only other point would be attached to the report was the quite outdated revenue tax policy. So staff will be working with the community economic development new position that started, Sue Wilkie, and as well as with the operations staff, and just provide council, the goal being to provide council an updated policy with some recommendations on tax schemes for future year taxes, but obviously not enough time to complete a fulsome review of that for this year's tax season. But happy to answer any further questions. And if council is supportive of this, I'll be working with our communications coordinator, Christina Mute, to provide adequate or fulsome communication to the community, so everyone will have access to the information, property tax calculators, et cetera, so they can kind of review what this will mean for them individually, because depending on your individual house assessment and what changed there will factor in the changes. But the result overall for based on the average assessment is $46.34 increase in taxes per year, which is $3.86 per month.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gray. Can you please just repeat for me the stat that you have of the new folios? How many new residential and how many new commercial properties did you say?
144 residential and 13 commercial classified properties.
And sorry, the total new revenue through growth was?
262,000.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I like your stats. Okay, questions for Ms. Gray? Okay, so the recommendation here is that council give first, second, and third reading to the bylaw cited as property tax rate bylaw number 816/2021. Moved by Councillor Beddoes and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any comments? See none, all those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. We'll look forward to our next pieces. Okay, we're into new business, item 13. 13.1 is the South Island Prosperity Project voting delegate. So this is for SIP, and as council knows, we have been members of SIP, and it started off in most communities with the mayor participating in this role on behalf of their respective communities. However, as the work is picking up here, I'm going to ask that we now look to designate a councillor. So I had Councillor Dana Lajeunesse in mind, just given his work with our ECDEV committee and so forth. There's some work that started to break off into subcommittees, and there's just too many scheduling conflicts. So, you know, I said I would delegate when I could, and I really need to start doing that. So I'm going to ask then, and I'll move this, that council designate Councillor Dana Lajeunesse to serve as the designate for the South Island Prosperity Partnership. So I'm going to make that motion.
Second.
And I'll
I'll
ask for a
second that.
seconder. by Councillor Logans. Thank you. And if council supports this, I just feel that with scheduling conflicts, there's a lot, and I'm not showing up as prepared as I would be to give this the work and effort that it does. And it fits right in with the work that Councillor Lajeunesse is doing. And I just feel that would be a good, timely fit. Councillor St. Pierre, do you have a question, comment, something?
Yeah, I'm just curious, as the designate is, does that mean that Councillor Lajeunesse will be the primary and you would no longer be representing us at SIP at all? And does that mean that Councillor Lajeunesse would want to have some sort of an alternate in case he can't make it?
I can still be sort of a backup. As a mayor, I'm sort of ex officio to everything. So provided I have notice to do so, that works. But there's other mayors that are doing the same thing, and we keep having to move the SIP meetings around to juggle this or that or this. And there was a time where we were meeting on CRD Wednesdays before the CRD board met. But with COVID and the inability to have access to other rooms, like I was sitting on the roof of the parkade trying to log into meetings sometimes. And now we've shifted because that didn't work, but now it's colliding with other things like this, the housing solution labs and other things that I'm speaking at. It's not working. So I think just with the work that Councillor Lajeunesse is doing, and other mayors are doing the same. We're looking to shift it off so that our communities are well served in that regard. I wasn't doing a bad job. It's just I'm a super high achiever. So, showing up as a C+ is not good enough for me. I know that Councillor Lajeunesse will give it a solid A the whole way. Okay.
I'll do my best.
Not to freak you out or anything. And by the way, I volunteered for a bunch of things, so you'll have some subcommittee roles to play too. Councillor Beddoes, question?
No, I'm just going to make the motion, that's all.
Okay, so well, it's been moved and seconded, so
Oh,
I'll
it
call the
has?
question.
Okay, I'm
Yep.
sorry, it went on so long, I forgot where we were.
That's exactly it. All right, so I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Lajeunesse. Okay, the next one up here is item 14, correspondence for action. The property is assess clean energy pace and helping cities lead campaign. So this was pulled by Councillor Bateman. So I'll turn it over to Councillor Bateman, please, to walk us through this item.
Yes, thank you. So this item we're walking through for the third time. It's the return of an item that has been on our agendas twice now. So the latest was on March 22nd. And we decided at that point it would be a good subject for a committee of the whole discussion. However, our corporate officer, in her great wisdom, noted that rather than add another item to already really busy committee of the whole agendas, we were best advised to deal with this rather straightforward advocacy matter at a regular council meeting. So I prepared two resolutions for Souk with accompanying letters. And I'm asking for your support to get these things into the system. They've now been signed by more than 20 BC local governments. You're all familiar by now with PACE and the work of Help Cities Lead. This is all part of that 50%, Councillor Beddoes, aspirational goal, aspirational being a key word, for 2030. Advocacy as being done by local governments throughout Canada, and particularly in BC and in the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities. Very strong climate action advocacy work with higher levels of government. So this is a key piece of that. And of course, to get to 50% and have our 7% solution, we're going to need district actions and policy, which is already underway in a bunch of different frameworks that need to be measured as they do in Saanich and in Port Moody. There's also a piece around citizen engagement. And so we're all in this together. We're all working towards a goal. And this piece of advocacy, the PACE program in particular, it allows homeowners to borrow money from private lenders to upgrade the energy efficiency of their homes. And these loans would be paid back through property taxes, which are tied to the portfolio and not to the individual owner. So this is seen to be it's working brilliantly in some other countries around the world, the US in particular, and Canada is being urged to fast track this. So that's it from me.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bateman. I just have a question. So in this, it says council endorses the notice of motion and letter. I don't understand that. Like, how do we endorse a notice of motion?
Well, I'm not sure I made a notice of motion. I put forward a resolution, which is a notice of motion.
You know, like I'm totally
Do we
fine.
read it into the record tonight and then vote on it next meeting?
No, because then like it would be a notice of motion to, and then like we don't need to endorse a notice of motion. Like that's just the procedural piece that I don't quite get here. I don't get why that's here. But like really I think, and then there is the resolution. So that resolution where it says support from Help Cities Lead from the District of Souk, like where is that going? Like what is that?
Well, it's a resolution we make tonight that then goes into this letter, which is the subsequent
Oh, I see.
piece, and then that gets sent out to the Minister of Environment, etc. And likewise with the PACE BC resolution.
Okay. Ms. Mushada, I see your hand there.
Your worship, not to discredit Councillor Bateman's motion here, but I don't actually think that a motion is required. When this first came to council, council endorsed this through a resolution and directed Councillor Bateman to draft the letters making it Souk's letter. So in fact, council has already endorsed it, so council can just have the letters here for information tonight and receive it for information or endorse the letters if they wanted to.
Okay, so that's the part there is more that councils, you know, I'm looking more for a resolution that say that council authorized the mayor to sign the attached letter. Because the first part's been done. Will that work, Ms. Mushada? Something like that?
Yes.
Okay. So Councillor Bateman, would you like to move that?
Yes.
Make that
so
motion.
moved.
Okay, so this is to move, this is a motion from council authorizing myself to sign this letter on behalf of the district and council. That's moved by Councillor Bateman, and then a seconder, please, by Councillor Lajeunesse. Okay, thank you. Comments, Councillor Beddoes, I see.
Yeah, I really like the PACE program. It sounded like something that is worth pursuing. I don't particularly appreciate the lecture that came with it, but anyways, the PACE program is all contingent on a higher level of government, which I'm hoping the province does come through with that. So yeah, that's all I have to say. I'm okay with it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Beddoes. Councillor St. Pierre?
I'm also really in favor of this because honestly, the financial tools to actually pay for upgrades and to pay for things like heat pumps are what a lot of our people are missing for the retrofits, which are going to have a huge impact on reducing our emissions. That's what's needed. Our new stock is addressed by the STEP program to some degree, but all the existing stock is still going to keep on spewing GHGs until we can actually get some renovations happening. And this is a great way to finance it.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, any other comments from any members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. And thank you, Councillor Bateman, for drafting the letter and just following through on this. It is a great program. Okay, so moving on to item 15, council verbal reports. So look for members of council for any updates, please. Okay, Councillor Beddoes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just follow up what was said earlier. I think you caught the gist of it, is that we're really moving along very quickly on the OCP, and dialogue is taking all the information away, and we're going to have something to deal with in early June. So the committee is pretty happy with what's the last presentation by our contractor and staff, and we're moving along, and some enthusiasm is building to get on with this. So Just an update.
Thank you, Councillor Beddoes. Councillor Bateman, then St. Pierre, please.
Yes, thank you. I did attend the OCP Advisory Steering Committee, and I must compliment Councillor Beddoes on his excellent work as chair. He's been nominated for another 3 months, and I'm, yeah, there we go on that one. Community Economic Development Committee, it was great to hear from Sue Welk. I won't steal Dana's thunder if he wants to speak to that. Climate Action Committee meets on Tuesday. And we're, as I said earlier, really looking forward to the Community Economic Development Committee joint meeting, which will be chaired by the mayor on May 5th. EMCS Society meeting last week, and among the many things discussed there, the new theater seats will go in the summer into the EMCS Community Theater. And co-coordinator Ashley Green has convened a working group of youth service providers who will be meeting quarterly. And that's the initiative of the society, and it's a really useful new development. And finally, Victoria Family Court met last week. They're continuing to work with the CRD to transition into a more formalized committee of the CRD while still retaining their independence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Other members of council? Councillor Lajeunesse, go ahead.
Yes, as Councillor Bateman has alluded to, we had our first meeting with Sue Welke, our Community Ec Dev officer, and she has a very well mapped out plan that takes us through the middle of summer, and a lot of exciting things expected from that, and we'll see where it goes.
Thank you, Councillor Lajeunesse. Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, so the Land Use Development Committee did meet just last week, and we had an excellent report from Christine Bossy on food security strategies, and that was a draft that'll be coming forward to council at some point in the future, I'm sure. We also had a report from Mr. Paulo on ALC and residents in the ALR. There are some new there's new direction from the province on residences and additional residences on ALR. And there's a recommendation will be coming from the Land Use Committee to Council regarding that very soon. We also examined or looked at the low carbon, the LCR framework in terms of land use, and discussed how that would affect our committee work. And again, good things were discussed all around. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor St. Pierre. Councillor McMath or Logans, any updates to share? Okay, thank you. And I'll just share just a few highlights here. I've provided in the past information regarding my concerns of e-com and the downloading of 911 services to our local government. So there's been a group of communities that are impacted that have been discussing this item. And so there's some more follow-up work occurring there, as well as a request to meet directly with the minister responsible so that we can share our concerns there. So that's an ongoing moving file. There's also been additional work regarding to this from the CRD and a service that we use, which is fire service dispatch. So a different piece that I had confused initially with 911 e-com, but now just doing some more research into how these different services are provided. So this is just some of the work that is happening there, as well as other emergency service work. So just some more digging into understanding all of these pieces here has been happening, and there's other meetings that have been called about this. I am a guest speaker at our Rotary Club this week, so I look forward to joining with our Rotary Club virtually. I usually am invited every year to just share highlights of what's happening and have lunch together. However, it'll be virtual because that's the way we're living right now. I'm also a guest speaker at the CEO-CAO forum, which is hosted by the Local Government Leadership Academy. So I'll be doing a segment there on, which is the Civic Excellence Forum that is occurring later on this week. I'm also speaking at the Urban Development Institute next week. So they launched a series of panels where planning staff from 5 select communities presented, and now the mayors of those communities are speaking, and then following, the minister responsible will speak in a series. So have been working with our staff just so I understand what was shared so that we're working together, and we've had a brief meeting of the minds. We're completely on the same page, so I am excited about sharing out the work. The question from UDI though was interesting. It was, how will our council support staff in achieving the housing needs? And it's a difficult question to answer, but some pieces that I'll talk about is the work that we're doing, our sharing of priorities, the updates from our CAO, the importance of building a reputable organization, a solid and strong working culture so that our staff can, we take care of our staff, they'll support the community, and that's how we're working together. So I'm still sort of untangling my speaking notes in my head, but I have a week, so I have some time. On another note, as you know, we had started formalizing our friendship agreement with the City of Japan, with the City of Natori in Japan last year. We have been Zooming now with their mayor, and just sharing some work and looking to build a relationship virtually. So we are going to put together a video that just put some highlights together, and with a lot of good stock that we already have, because it's something that their council wants to share out with their community. And so doing a little bit of work there. On a fun note, I was able to join virtually the students of Souk Elementary over their lunch hour to kick off Souk Literacy Week, which was last week. And so I was able to read a book, The Giving Tree, and shared that out with the school. And so that was a fun thing to do. And I've also been recording myself reading books as part of the Souk Literacy program. So there was a number of storybooks that I've been reading, and have finally managed to figure out the technology and kind of get over it. And I've managed to do all the recordings. I just need to figure out how to get them out now. So it's just they're fun things to do. And it's all supporting different community groups locally. And then of course, there's the work with the Housing Solutions Lab that have been occurring. Some further feedback again on our wolf advocacy that's always ongoing. That one topic seems to have been probably generated the most media interest out of anything that we've done in the past year, which is interesting, because we're also doing our best to showcase all the other good work that's happening, but it's just interesting what seems to pick up. And I'll sort of leave it at that. It's never a dull moment anyway, as you all know. It's busy. So thank you very much. And as there's more information, I did apply to sit on a UBCM committee, which is about the Police Act. This is such an important element of our community safety. There's changes occurring now to the Police Act. The province has opened up a whole process where they were looking to review that. We certainly have cost pressures coming our way with our population continuing to grow and to increase, as well as things like e-com and other costs that are downloaded from the federal government in terms of what they want. It's interesting what they want, and what they feel is necessary to do, but then the cost comes onto local governments to fill. So we're not at the decision when that's made, but we certainly have to pay the bill in the end. So that's known as a known advocacy item from UBCM. The special committee that I chaired and still participate on local government finance is now at a point where they're putting the staff are putting the policy together, and it is all about cost pressures. The committee that I was working on was community safety, which I felt really relevant. So what is the problem? Here are the solutions. And now where does that put us in terms of advocacy? But just given the cost pressure, I felt it would be by me applying for this committee at least get good information that will inform us in our community going forward. They seek out applicants from different sizes communities so that we understand and can at least share how every community is impacted. We're all impacted a bit differently because of our size. And I'll leave it at that. So that brings us to the end of our agenda this evening. The other piece, though, that I'll just add is at the CRD this week. This is an important one to share. I sit on the regional parks, and Councillor Bateman had championed a notice of motion that I brought forward some time ago, and that was to have mountain biking be a realized priority in CRD regional parks, and for a policy to be put together as well as mountain biking guidelines. The board did support that direction and had formed a subcommittee and is now at a point where they're looking at the guidelines. However, the part of this is it's still not seeing the potential and the benefits that mountain biking does. And I've shared with you recently, we have a new business venture that has started and is on their way in close proximity to Harborview because of the potential in this area. It's still more viewed as, you know, well, we'll add some of these trails. I think the benefit of mountain biking has not been realized, and there's been fantastic trail work done, and it's all sort of deemed as rogue trail building, whereas these are trails for families to ride safely together in Harborview because we don't have that many easy to advocate trails. So that'll be an interesting discussion, and you may be contacted. Certainly local residents who ride have been reaching out to me, and you may have others reach out to you, in which case please share out some of the information that you may hear, or any concerns or comments about the guidelines. It's all available on the CRD website now, because I was just looking at the emails that are continuing to come in on this matter. Okay. All right. So on that note, we are back tomorrow at 7 o'clock, a special council meeting for us to deliberate on the community grants. Between them and then and now, tomorrow and now, if you have any suggestions on a procedure that you feel would work for us to go through them, please share them with me. We'll have that discussion. It's just right now, I mean, you know how exciting I am. It's the case of, okay, we'll go through them one at a time in the order that they are received. So something more dynamic or of interest, please share that with me. I'd love to hear your good ideas and how we can innovate this, because I'm stuck in terms of just going through them in that way. So love to hear your suggestions. So on that note, everyone, thank you very much to staff, members of council, for your many contributions and all the great work that you're doing on behalf of our community. To members of the public that are still with us, thank you very much for joining. For anyone on YouTube that are watching the webcast, thank you for hanging in there till the end of our meeting with us. And we'll see you all back here tomorrow evening at 7. So on that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Logans. Have a good night, everyone. All those in favor of adjournment? And it's unanimous. Okay, take care, everyone. See you tomorrow.